Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're going to give it just another minute to let everybody get here. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for AFCARS Office Hours. My name is Amber Nagorski. I work with ICF on assignment with Children's Bureau, Division of State Systems, and Division of Performance Measurement and Improvement. And I will just be here to kind of moderate. So before we get started, if you'll look at the bottom of your screen, we're going to go over some of the housekeeping items. Today's demo webinar is recorded, and that'll be available to you once we have it everything saved and uploaded, and I believe we'll have that on the NCWDMS homepage. At the bottom of your screen, there will be a chat box. If you have questions during today's presentation, please feel free to add any of those questions within the chat box for us, or you can also email it to us at afcars@acf.hhs.gov. You can also enable the closed captioning at the bottom of your screen. There should be a CC option that allows you to have closed captioning on. And then if you have something that you need to ask verbally, you can use the reaction button, the raise hand feature. And I believe that that's everything. So once again, thanks for joining us, and I will pass it over to Jennifer Haight.
Hi, everyone. I just want to say hello. Thank you for joining. And I'm going to turn it over to our contractor to ICF, Romnick, who's going to provide a demonstration of the NCWDMS system, which is now available for piloting. For those of you who haven't already been using it for the FORI prevention data uploads and submissions. I do also just want to note that most of this session is going to be dedicated to that pilot. So if you have program questions related to the AFCARS program, please feel free to put them in the chat. We will record them. If we have time, we'll get to them, but if not, we'll certainly get back to you in the next few days or by the next office hours. So with that, I just want to turn it over to Romnick, and thank you all again for joining us.
Thank you, Jennifer. I am, as Jennifer indicated, Ran McBagay. I am the project manager for the NCWDMS system on the contractor side. Today, as Jennifer indicated, we are going to be spending some time doing demonstrations of our key functionality in the system. We're excited for the opportunity to show you different aspects of the system. And as Jennifer indicated, there will be time at the end for us to answer any questions you may have. And of course, we'll get back to you if we're not able to get to those questions today. I will have 3 of my team members on our project team, Miriam Fiazzi, Stella Sam, and Fred Dykins, who will be performing different scenarios as real life users would to give you a perspective on how the system is used. And we'll also emphasize some key points as we go through that process. Of course, as mentioned, this session will be recorded and will be available for future reference. We're also working on finalizing training materials and fact sheets that will get posted on the site as well. One thing we wanted to do here is give you a little bit of reiteration on our time frame for the pilot. So I'm going to be sharing my screen here to show you that. Let me just bring up the slideshow. Okay. So essentially, our pilot has now kicked off this month. We will be going through the next couple of months through the end of February for us to collect any pilot feedback based on the pilot testing that you all will be doing. We will be having, the webinar today, and then there's another webinar scheduled in February as well. We'll be spending the time between March and April on analyzing your feedback and seeing if there's any critical pilot issues that we need to update in the system. And then the system will start to get used for real life submissions starting with a 23A submission period from April to, and that goes through mid-May of 2023. One thing I do want to emphasize is that testing of the file upload process that we'll be demonstrating a little bit later today can continue even after the pilot ends and can continue through all the submission periods, as the transmissions in the system can be done without having to become official submissions. So you can get that real-time or that feedback soon after in terms of what data quality or compliance issues you may have to take a look at, if applicable. So with that, I will go ahead now and turn it over to Miriam to start with our demonstrations of the system. Miriam?
Thank you, Ramnik. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me just share my screen here. So now everyone should be able to see my screen. I'm going to demonstrate the initial login, the multi-factor authentication, and the home screen navigation. And we did create a new SCT user account for Washington, D.C. beforehand. Just a side note here, SCT user accounts can usually be created by CB program admins or by CB regional users within their region. After the SCT user account has been created, the SCT user will receive an email. Let me just put that here. An email with a temporary password and initial login instruction for the SCT user. So here you can see, for example, username is miriam.fiazi@icf.com. And you see the temporary password, which is right here. So this is basically what I would use to log in to the NCWDMS page. Let me just open that again. Here we go. So what I would do here is now entering my email address, which we just got confirmation from in the email, miriam.fiazi@icf.com. And normally I would just put the right password or the temporary password here, but I will demo now what would happen in case I use incorrect credentials, for example, an invalid email address or a wrong password. So in this case, I'm just going to use an incorrect password. So miriam.fiazi@icf.com, it would be the correct email address. And what I would do is now I'm just going to type in an incorrect email address, so not the temporary password, which is something like this. Oh, so just put something in here. So as we can see, an error message displays and it says authentication failed, invalid email or password. After 3 consecutive unsuccessful login attempts, your account will be temporarily locked for 30 minutes. Please try again. So we don't want to lock our account and wait 30 minutes. So let's go ahead and use the correct credentials this time, which is the one. Let's just double check that real quick here. So this is the temporary password, the correct one. I'm just going to copy it here. And then double checking. Okay, so what I do is I click on login. And now we can create our own password. So I'm just going to type in the old one again, or just copy and paste it again. So this is the old one, and I'm just gonna go ahead and create a new one here real quick. And be sure. Okay. And then I'm just do it one more time. Okay. I will click on the submit button. This was the change password setup. And now this is an initial step of the multi-factor authentication, the MFA. And there are 3 steps, as you can see here. The first step is to install an authenticator app on your computer or mobile phone. Please note that only secured approved authenticator can be used for logging into NCWDMS. So these are actually listed here, so you can see them. Google Authenticator, Trello, Okta, Duo, and Microsoft Authenticator. And what I will do now is I'm going to use the Microsoft Authenticator. I have already downloaded on my mobile phone. And what I basically do now is, let me just show you that. So when I go into that app, I would click on the plus button right here, and then it would ask me what kind of account I want to add. So here I would just go and click or go on work or school account, and it would just ask me to scan the QR code. So this is what I basically do now on my phone. I'm scanning the QR code now. Okay, and I received a MFA token, which I will use now here, which is one. And now this is the last step. I will click on submit, and the MFA can now be used going forward unless your account has a need for a reset. But other than that, the MFA can be now used going forward. And here we go. After logging in, we land on the NCWDMS homepage. And on the top of the homepage, you can easily locate tab links which provide quick navigation to key features, which include the user management, as you see here, transmissions, submissions, and you can also log out here. And on the other side here, we have the user profile. But these are things that I will cover here a little later. So now I will hand it over to Stella. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. Good afternoon, everyone. So now can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you. So now that my user account has been created in the NCWDMS system, I will now be able to upload my files, my transmission files, to be submitted to the Children's Bureau later on. So when I navigate to the transmissions tab, this is what I will see. This table here lists all the transmission files that have been uploaded so far into NCWDMS by my STT. And as you can see, various details like the file ID, which is system generated for the transmission file, the program type for which the transmission was uploaded, whether it's AFCARS out-of-home care or adoption assistance, or even family first, the reporting period to which the transmission belongs, the date on which it was transmitted, by whom the transmission file was uploaded, and the file status, the status in which the file is currently, which I will explain a bit later on, and the number of records in the file. And there are also quick links to the file checks report as well as the quality report for the corresponding transmission file. And these are the actions that I will be able to perform on the transmission file that I just uploaded. I'll be either able to submit the file to the Children's Bureau, or I will be able to delete the file if I change my mind. And going to the file status column here, if I were to click on this click here icon, I will be able to see further explanations for the file statuses. So my transmission file could go to the fail status if there were an issue detected in my transmission. In this case, the file will not get uploaded and it will not be read by the NCWDMS system, so it will read as failed. If it crosses this successfully, when I upload it, it will go to the transmitted status. This means my transmission file has passed the antivirus scan and has been successfully uploaded into NCWDMS. After this, my file would go to the loaded status. This means my file is in a format that is understandable and acceptable to NCWDMS, and it has been successfully read in NCWDMS. Once all processing on the loaded file is complete, it would move to the process status. At this point, all the compliance and data quality reports for the corresponding file will be available. And then if I should choose to make this file my submission to the Children's Bureau, I can go ahead and click the submit file button and it would move to the submitted status. But if I do not want my file to remain in the transmission list, I could go ahead and click the delete file button and it would move to the deleted status. Sorry. Yeah. So all these fields are can be sorted. So by default, this table is sorted in descending order of the transmission date. As you can see, the latest transmission will appear first. This is the default sort order, but I could go ahead and try to sort it in ascending order of the transmitted by column, If I click once, it gets sorted in the ascending order. If I click it again, it gets sorted in the descending order. And if I click it again, it goes to the unsorted order, or the default order in which it is stored in the database. So all the columns that can be sorted, we can recognize by the presence of this arrow mark. So file ID, this column can be sorted as well as all these. The only 3 columns that we cannot sort on are the file checks column, the quality report column, as well as the actions column. Also, if I want to only focus on certain subset of the transmitted files, I could use the filter option. So I would click the filters icon. And let's say I want to filter all the transmission files that were transmitted by myself. I would go to transmitted by. I could choose any of the operators, but I will go with contains, and I would give my user ID. And to get the filter results, I would need to click anywhere outside of the table. So as you can see, the filter has returned all the transmissions that were made by me. And if I wanted to clear out my filter results, I would hit the filters icon again and simply click the X button. And that would delete all the results of the filter. So now that we have seen this, let me go ahead and try to upload a file. So for that, I would go and click the upload file button, and I would try to choose a file. I want to demonstrate that there are some errors that are caught even before I can successfully click the upload button. For that, I would make use of this file, which is an out-of-home care file for the period 2023A. And when I click on upload, as you can see, there is some error in the file. So this banner message details the error present in the file. So the file has 1 or more records with a child identifier of invalid length. So child identifier must be 12 characters, but that is not the case in this file. The first instance detected is child identifier pilot 230101, which is only 11 characters long. As you can see, this is the file. Hence, it was not uploaded successfully. So let me try again. This time I will go and try to if you saw that I chose a file for the adoption assistance program type, but I am selecting out of home care program type, but the correct reporting period I'm trying to upload. It says the program data type selected does not match the program data type in the file. So let me try once again. Out of home care, the correct program data type, and the correct reporting period. If I were to select the wrong reporting period, I would get the same error again. I would not be able to successfully upload. So now I get the banner message saying that my file has uploaded successfully. And once the processing is complete on the file that I've just uploaded, I would receive an email notification. And I would also be able to access the compliance and data quality reports pertaining to that file. And I would like to show a sample of an email that we would get for the processing once the processing is complete. And this is what the email would look like for a file that has been successfully processed. So file processing complete for the file ID. You should be able to access the applicable data compliance or quality reports from the transmission list. If I were to click on the link, it would take me to the login page again, and I would need to give in my user ID and password and log in, and it would take me straight to the transmissions page. Sorry. Right. As you can see, we would also get emails once we submit, but not right now. Let me go and filter out all the files that had been transmitted by me once again. So I had earlier submitted a file ID 267, and as you can see, it is in the file status of failed. This was because there was a duplicate data element in the file, and so it failed the processing, and the file status went to failed. I did get an email in similar format to the one I just showed you, where it showed me that the file ID 267 had gone to the failed status. And similarly, we would catch other errors, like if the child record number had illegal characters, or if the file had unknown data elements. For example, if it were a family first file, instead of F4, say we had wrongly specified it as A4, it would not recognize it as part of the family first program, so it would say unknown data element. Or even if the whole tag, XML tag itself were missing, we would catch the missing data element errors as well. For all this, we would receive email notifications. And so that brings me to the end of this part of my demo. I will now hand it over to Fred.
Thank you, Stella. Let me get my screen sharing going. And can you all see my screen?
Yes.
I'm going to refresh this real fast. We just uploaded a new file. Her file is still in the loaded state. A question was, how long does this take to upload with 2,000 or 3,000 records? If you only had one file uploading it at a time, that is in the 150 megabyte range, 2,000 or 3,000 records, it's probably like in the 10 minutes range to process all the different records with all the different rules that we're going to evaluate. I've done this where I upload like 30 200 meg files all at one time and really load down the system. That if you had that happening, that could take maybe 45 minutes to happen. And so in this case, the file that Stella uploaded here has already been previously uploaded. And if we want to look at the file details and see information about it, I'm going to click on the file ID here. The first tab we'll see is the file check tab, and this has two basic checks. The first one is timely submission and proper file format. Timely submission basically checks to make sure that data file is received before or on or before the reporting period deadline, and also that the file meets the technical standards by ACF. You'll notice here that this is blank. You'll notice here this is blank. This gets populated when the actual submission happens, and it compares the actual submission date to the reporting deadline. This file was 2023A reporting period, and so the deadline is May 15th. So if you were to have this file uploaded prior to that, this would show on time and compliant. If you uploaded on the submitted, I should say, on the 16th, then this file would be late and non-compliant, with the exception being if the 15th falls on a Saturday or a Sunday, you have till the following Monday to have your file submitted and still be late, or I mean, still be on time. Our next tab here is the compliance reporting tab. In here, the first thing we'll look at is you have a link here where you can click to view all of the rules that are for out-of-home care compliance rules. You can see, for example, this is the first element listed. It has a out of range error and a missing or empty error. It has the descriptions right here that'll tell you that the legal values for this element is 0 does not apply or 1 applies. And so for example, if I put a 2 in this for this element in my file, I would receive an out of range error. It will also tell you that this element cannot be missing or empty. So if that element is completely missing, you'll see a missing or empty error. Or if this element is just empty, you will see a missing or empty error. Real quick, a different type of error is a consistency error. These are ones where generally more than one element are involved. And so in this scenario, for example, if E106 is a 1, E107 cannot be missing or empty and must be a 0 or 1. And then you have the reverse is also true, where if E106 is 0, then E107 must be null. In reality is this here means missing or empty. Don't actually put the word null in your file. Have it be missing or have it be empty. And the last little thing I'll mention is this is sorted by string sort. How it comes out of the database. These are all strings in the database, so the database is turning these as a string sort. And what that really means is it's going to compare, for example, E100 to E1001. The fourth character is less than 0, the fourth character, so that's first and second. And then if we scroll down a little bit, we're wondering, well, like, where's 10? 10 is down here. And that's because in the name of a string sort, a 9 is less than an underscore. So it shows up in this kind of in this order. I mean, then of course you have the E110s, same kind of thing. Where's 11? Well, 11 is down here for the same reason. Underscore is less than, or 9 is less than underscore. So it shows up this way. So the next thing we'll look at is we have a kind of a visibility toggle here. And you can choose to see just non-compliant elements. You can choose to see elements with, all the elements with errors, and you can choose to see all elements. The default is non-compliant elements. And what we can see in this file is we have element 46. It has the name of the element. It has the description of the element. Here we can see that 8 of 10 records are error-free, so that gives us an 80% error-free rate. The threshold is 90%, and therefore our file is non-compliant. We might ask ourselves, well, what rules failed? You can click the Show Rules Checked, and this will drop down a list here and show you that this file has 2 records that have out-of-range errors. We can click to see the description, which will tell us that this value must be 0, not supported, no support, or 1, receive support. And we can also click here to see the actual child identifiers and which error it was and what the values were. And in this case, this file has a 2 and a 3. If this had more than one rule, this would give you a list here and show you all the rules. And then of course, this down here would show you all the different child record numbers with the different rules that have the different elements that are incorrect. So the next thing we'll look at is elements with errors. And here we'll see there's actually a couple more elements show up. In this case, we have E22 and we have E45. We can see here that for these, each of these has 9 of 10 records that are error-free. So therefore, we have a 90% error-free rate. The threshold is 90%, and therefore we've met that threshold, and this element is compliant. Here too, we can also click to see, well, what rule was incorrect. We can see the rule itself, and we can see the description of the rule. Where in this case, if 44 is a 1, then E45 cannot be missing or empty and must contain a proper year-month value. We can see the same thing for all of these. It's basically the same there. So something I might choose to do next is I might choose to try to go fix those and then re-upload my file. So what I would do is open my file in some kind of editor. And I would come down here and look, and I would see that E22 was not supposed to be missing or empty. And here it is, it's empty. And so what I'll do is I'll copy and paste this and see how well this works. And get this set right. Put a value in there, get my closing tag correct, and have something like this where I've now populated this value. Then I had, let me do this way, this will be easier. Then we know 46 was set to a 2 and it needs to be 0 or 1. So I'm going to set this to 1. And then we also know that pilot 3 had the same error where E46 was set to a 3 and it needs to be a 0 or 1. So I'm going to set this to a 1. And then I'm going to ignore for a moment pilot 04 fixing this error. And I would save this. Come back to my NCWDMS project. Go to the main transmission page. Click upload. Choose a file. I would select my fixed file. That's this one right here. And select the right data type, reporting period, click upload. And now I've re-uploaded my file. Of course, to save time, I have this already pre-uploaded. And so I'm going to click on my file ID 291 here. And this basically hasn't changed. I'll go to compliance. And what we're going to see here is this file has no non-compliant elements. But we do know there was an error in there. I'm going to click on show all elements with errors. And here is our here's our element 45 that was still failed. And we of course can click on the rules and the descriptions and see this. So maybe there's a reason why this is. And so one of the things that we can do is we can add a comment that is specific to this particular element in this particular error. And so I can click on add comment, and then I'm going to copy and paste for expediency here. And I can say something like, I know there's a previous guardianship for this child, but I'm struggling to get the actual date from the agency, which is why this is still missing. And this is my reasoning for that. And I can save this. And then of course you can edit this comment and you can change the text if you want, or you can actually delete this if you want before you submit it. All of these are capable. In this case, I'm going to have context here. The other thing we can do is we can go look at data quality errors. Data quality errors are very similar, except for instead of being element based, this is rule based. And so this is going to give you the actual error of the rule itself right here. And it's going to give you a description of what that rule is. And in this particular case, we can see that this particular rule, it has 9 out of 10 records that are error-free and only detected 1 error on 1 record, so it's 90% threshold. The threshold here is also 90%, so we've met the threshold. We can do the same thing where we show the error, and we can see that it's the child identifier ending in 05 has this report date with this child birth date and this value. And so we can see all of those pieces. And basically this means that when a child is, you put in here a value of 1, which is not of school age, the child must be less than 5 years old. And in this case, the child's more than 5 years old. And so we see this error. But I'm here too, I might need to explain this. I might need to say that the local school district policy allows for a child to be 5 years old and still not enrolled in school. And so I'll click something like this and click save. and have that be in here as my reasoning why this child is 5 and a little over 5 and still not enrolled in school. And finally, the one thing we have is like a file level comment. Those last two were pretty much like an error level comment. You can also do a file level comment. And we can add something that pertains to the whole file. Oops, didn't spell that right. And so we can select private or official. And let's discuss that. Private comments are comments that are only viewable by the STTs, agency STT users. And that's whether it's in the transmission table or the submission table, only the agency's STTs can see them. If you set it to official, and that means when you submit the file, the CB program admins, when they go look at this file in the submissions page, they will be able to see your comment. And so we can close that and we can save that. And then of course you can edit those because like, oops, I should have made this official. So now I can save that as an official comment. I guess the last thing I should have mentioned way up front that I forgot about that I'll do right now is compliance errors. This only applies to AFCARS out of home and AFCARS adoption assistance. Family First does not have compliance errors. If this was a Family First file, all you would see is file check, quality, and comment. And that concludes my demo, and I will turn it back to Stella. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Hello again. Let me share my screen. Yes. Can everyone see my screen now?
Yes.
Thank you. So now that we have seen the processing of the transmitted file, let's say I want to go ahead and delete one of the files that I have transmitted or uploaded. So for that, let me pick this file 269, and when I click on the delete file, it will ask me for confirmation that I do indeed want to delete the transmission file. Once I give the confirmation, it will go ahead and delete it. And now for file 269, should have deleted. Maybe I did not click it properly. Yeah, and now it did. So file 269 was successfully deleted. And if you were to scroll to the right, you would see that the actions column is now empty. I will not be able to do any more actions on this file. Neither is the file ID clickable, and I will not be able to view the details of this file 269, like the compliance and the quality reports. So that's the deletion of the file. And now I want to go ahead and submit a file to the Children's Bureau. Let me pick file 292 for submission. So I go ahead and click the submit file. And once again, it asks me for confirmation that I do indeed want to submit this file. So I provide the confirmation. It takes a while, but it does give me it. Yes, file 292 was successfully submitted. So once that is submitted, as you can see, file 292 is no longer visible in the transmissions list. But if I were to go to the submissions list, I would see it on the submissions page. File 292 is present here. And I would receive an email maybe slightly later to the effect that file 292 was submitted to the Children's Bureau. Now let's say I want to, I've changed my mind. I want to pick another file to be the actual submission to the Children's Bureau. So, sorry. I pick 295 and I submit this file. So as you can see, I got the NCWDMS file submitted email for 292. So, but now I'm going ahead and submitting 295. Once again, after I receive the confirmation message here. Yep, it's no longer visible in the transmissions list, but becomes visible in the submissions list. And here you can see an active column. The file that I just submitted, file 295, has an yes in the active column, whereas the file that I had submitted just earlier, 292, has a no. This explanations for this can be viewed here once I click here. So active denotes that this is the most current submission for the reporting period by the STT to the Children's Bureau. And no denotes that this was the active submission earlier, but is now superseded by another recent submission, which now becomes the active. So the older one became inactive. So back to you, Miriam. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Stella. Let me share my screen. There we go. Okay, so everyone should be able to see my screen now. If not, please let me know. Yeah, so I will move on with the user profile. Let's navigate to the user profiles page. Okay. As you can see here, we have two tabs. The first tab is the user account info, and the second one is the update password. So let's start with the first tab. We can view here the user account information. You have the ability to change your name information as needed. For example, if someone's last name changes, we can go ahead and change it here from Fiazi to, for example, Smith. And click on Save Changes. And here we go. We got the confirmation that the user profile has been successfully changed. But as you can see here, the email address is grayed out, which means it cannot be changed. If that were to ever happen, you would need to change that by contacting the NCWDMS help desk. You have the email address here and also the phone number. Other information that you can view here is the program access. For the demo purpose, or for demo purposes, we have set it up for both AFCARS and Family First. And you can also see the agency type, state, NCWDMS role, and the STT. If you need to change any of these information, the CB program admin should be able to help you with this, as he has the permission to modify these information. Okay, so this was about the user account info. Moving on to the update password tab. Here you can change, you have the option to change your password if necessary. Let me demonstrate that quickly. I'm just gonna put in here the old password or the current one that we had. Okay. And now I will choose a new password. Here, please keep in mind to review the password policy. So it should be at least 8 characters in length, contain both upper and lowercase alphabetic characters, have at least 1 numerical character, and have at least 1 special character. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do testing 1, 2, 3, pound sign. Let me see if everyone can see it. Yeah. And then one more time. Asking it twice. Changing it to testing 1, 2, 3. And pound sign. Submitted. And now we can see that we got the confirmation that the password has successfully changed, and we automatically get logged out from the NCWDMS system. So this was all I had for the user profile, like the two tabs that we were just talking about. And now I will log back in with a new password I just created, and I will move on to the user step. So just let me log in back with a new password that we created. Which was testing 1, 2, 3 pound. Double checking. So now, as we said, we can use the MFA going forward. So let me just go on my app and enter the MFA token here, which is this. Okay. There we go. Clicking on submit. And we're back in. Okay, so now we will move on to the users page. On the users page, you can view a table list of all users of the same STT that you are signed into and of the same program access. For example, right now, my user account is activated for both Family First and AFCARS. So I should be able to see it for both program types. And as you can see here, I can see it for both. And also, I should be able to see it only for Washington, D.C. And as you can see here, for the state, I can only see it for the District of Columbia here. And yeah, so what does this table provide? This table provides information on the STT user. Information that you see in this table are the email address, the first name, the last name, we have the user role, we have the STT, program access, and the account status, as we can see here. And let's have a look at the sorting function as well. This table is default sorted on user email, which is also written down here. It can be sorted by clicking on the column headers. So let me show you that right here. For example, right now, as you can see, it's already sorted from A to Z, and this is in ascending order. Let's say we want to sort it. We want to sort this table by the column first name. So what I would do is, if I click one time on the column header, it's sorted in an ascending order, as you can see here. So we have the A, B, C, D. And then if I click one more time on it, which I will do right now, so that's the second time, it sorts it in a descending order. So now we have W, T, S, S, and so on. And if I click a third time, it will just return, which I will do right now, it will just return to the default ascending order that we had originally. Another option that we have are the filters. So the filter button is on the top of the table on the left side over here. And when I click on it, we have the option to filter each column. For example, user email, first name, last name, user role, and so on, program access, account status, whatever you want to filter. And we also have operators, contains, equals, start with, ends with, and so on. And we can also put a value here. So I will demonstrate it on the, let's say, email address, for example. Let's start with email address. Email address contains, I can just change it with starts, for example, starts with. And my, for example, I want to search for my email address, which is Miriam. So I would just put in Mir. Let's see what happens. Here we go. You can see that it found my email address right here. It filtered it. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and delete that again. Okay. Let's do one more. Let's do last name, for example, and I'm just gonna do Ansmith. So I changed my name to Smith, as you can all remember, and I'm just gonna put an H because Smith ends with H. And as you can see, it all filtered it to the last name that ends with H. So to close the filter, you can either press on escape or you click outside of the filters panel, which I'm going to do right now. And here we go, the filter closed. To clear your active filter, you can press the delete button, which is over here, the X button, in the panel. And as you see, the filter has been cleared. So I have two more points that I wanted to mention. The first one is that initially NCWDMS started with two different user roles for STTs, but now it has been collapsed to just a single STT user role called STT user due to policy update at CB. But this will be fully updated in a future NCWDMS release. And the second point that I had is that I wanted to mention that you're only permitted to upload and submit files based on your program access. For example, if your account has access to both AFCARS and Family First, then you of course have the permission to upload and submit files for both program types, AFCARS and Family First. But if you only have access to AFCARS, for example, then you would be only permitted to upload and submit files for AFCARS only. And yeah, this is all I had in regards to the SCT user account management, and I will hand it back to Ramnik now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Miriam. I think what we can do now is go through the remaining questions. I know some were being answered as we proceeded through the demonstration, kind of in real time. But for any that are left, we can take a stab at answering. And then if we run out of time, then we can obviously follow up with those individuals offline. But rest assured, we will get to everybody. So let me just take a quick scan here and see what questions are still open that have not been responded to yet. Yes, so I see a question from Christine Weaver on if the file fails during upload or during processing, how do we know why it failed? There are a couple of stages of validation. If during the initial upload, there is an error that is detected up front. For example, maybe the initial child identifier was not enough characters. At that point, when it is going through that process, it will immediately give you a message back on that file upload modal to show you what the issue was. Now, there are stages there's a later stage in terms of processing. As the file is being processed, if additional issues are detected, for example, maybe there was an unknown element in the file, in the XML transmission file, what would happen at that point is the system would send an email notification describing the nature of the error and would give you in that email notification a table with all of the issues that occurred and why it failed. So that's the answer there. Next, I see a question from Maria Tillman about when setting up my NCWDMS username over a year ago, I typed my email address incorrectly. How can my email address error be resolved? For that, as we were demonstrating, that email address is something that we on the system end actually have to update. So just, I would say, let's open a ticket with our help desk, and they will route it to our team, and then we will update your email address, and so that it is correct in the system. Next, I see a question about, can we print the compliance report? So this particular system is being developed in phases. We have a future enhancement in which we will be looking at the functionality to be able to directly print the compliance report. So not in place at the moment, but it is something we have logged as a requirement that we'll be looking at for the future. So that is something we are planning to get to then. Next question is from Corey Osmond on, can we get example XML files for both types of files? And I assume you're talking here about the AFCARS out-of-home care and the AFCARS adoption assistance. We were told this would be available during one of our sessions. Yes, that is correct. We will be sending XML files as samples as we proceed here in the pilot. So you can take a look at those examples. We're going through some internal reviews, but those should be coming to you soon. Okay. Next question is from John. Will we be able to get all errors, other formats, i.e. CSV file or Excel? So I'm assuming that means, can we get an output of the errors, such as the DQ errors or the compliance errors? And the answer is, we are working on a CSV file output right now for the data quality report. We may be looking at that for the compliance report as well in the future. So those are both sort of enhancements that we're looking at for the future. The next one from Brian Thatcher, I believe Malcolm has already answered, so I will skip that one. The next one is from Bethany Akers. Will comments be available to view after submitted. Yes, those will be available to view after submitted, and at the STT level. And of course, as was demonstrated, if they're marked as official, then in that case, they will also be viewable by the CB program admins. Okay. Next question is from Cassie Baumgartner. Are the comments just for our tracking purposes, or will ACF use those for something as well? So those are really, as was kind of described, provided as explanations that you may have for issues on the data quality side or the compliance side. But I will also ask ACF, Malcolm or Rebecca, if you want to expand on that any from the ACF perspective.
Becky, I'm going to give you a second to chime in if you want. Otherwise, I'll just start talking.
Go ahead, Malcolm.
Okay. So obviously, sort of the private ones are just for your own internal tracking purposes. And in terms of the officially submitted ones, they are not required. But sort of the goal is to sort of facilitate communication. So there needs to be less back and forth between AFCARS administrators or even sort of members of the CFSR team to determine sort of some data errors and track down what's going on. And generally, the goal is to just hopefully make the whole process smoother by having comments, attachable directly to data elements. You don't need to hand write out a response to everything, but at least the major ones I think would be very useful information to provide the Children's Bureau and sort of hopefully save you time in the future also.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Malcolm. Next, we'll go to Elizabeth Roberts, who has asked about, are we going to be able to generate a frequency report? The answer to that is yes. We are working right now on the requirements, and we'll be going into design and development for that. So that is another one that's coming up in the future. That is in the plans to develop. I see Amber has answered the next one. Malcolm, the next one. And then from CLHECK, I was put in for a Nicodemus account this past Thursday, have not received an email. And I would say, hopefully you've also checked. We have seen a couple of situations where it's gone to your spam or your junk folder. So just double check those in your email system. But if not, then let's go ahead and contact the Nicodemus Help Desk and we will create your account. And you should, I'm sorry?
I was going to say the same thing, Romnick. I know we create a lot of accounts and a lot of the account requests came in over the holidays. And they do have a tendency to go to the junk mail. So check your junk mail. And if you don't see it there, feel free to reach out to the help desk.
Yep, sounds good. Thanks, Malcolm. Next one is from Christine Weaver. We will be able to run an error report and frequency report that we can download and review. Clicking into each of these will be very time consuming. So for the frequency report, definitely yes, we are working on that. For the error report, maybe Christine, you could clarify, is there another sort of error report that you're looking for there beyond what we demonstrated? We can also follow up with you offline just to get clarifications on what type of specifically that report is. But definitely yes, for the frequency report, the error report, we can get some, we'll do some follow up with you to see what you're looking for there. And we can go from there. Okay, let me see what else here. Believe that is actually it, at least from what I've seen from the list right now. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to the address that Amber provided at the beginning. And of course, if you experience any issues, system issues as you're going through the pilot, contact the Nicodemus Help Desk, get the information that was provided, and we'll touch base with you as needed. And Amber has also reposted the AFCARS address there in the chat for everyone for reference.
I did want to jump in and say, AJ, I know you had some questions in the chat. We're going to get to those. We just need to do a little bit more work on those. And if anyone else has any questions, please feel free to send them to the AFCARS mailbox. If you have problems logging in, that goes to the Nicodemus Help Desk. And we look forward to talking with you in between this, but we'll also meet with you all next month at our AFCARS office hours to talk more about the pilot and some of your other questions that have come in. Right.
And just to reiterate, the pilot is open now. So as long as you have your user set up, you'll be able to transmit files. And you'll also be able to submit files if you want, though essentially they will be deleted out at some point.
Okay. All right.
So thanks for joining us, everybody. We appreciate you being a part, and happy piloting.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.